daily morning live class during quarantine because of coronavirus, and maybe even after the coronavirus lockdown is finished. We'll keep going live every day so that you can keep learning English every day, or studying English, or using English. Who knows? Because today's class is about studying versus learning versus using English. What are the differences and how they can help you become even better at English, no matter which one you choose to do. And maybe you need to change the one you do. Also, I'll be answering my daughter's question that I got last night while I was in the shower. Sorry for the horrible image. And she asked me, Daddy, how many different meanings are there of the word hot? So let's do that as well. Let's see. Good morning. And I might very well answer some of Kaz's questions or correct his sentences, because he has been kind enough to send me some example sentences, which everybody should do, because that's going to help you improve your language. Good morning, how are you? I'm very, very good, thank you. So let's get into it, shall we? Well, before we do hot and other meanings of that word, I did want to talk about studying English versus learning English versus using English. And I wonder which one you do. Studying English first, of course. Well, let's have a look at this. Good morning, Ohio Kaz. Some beautiful English/Japanese and maybe even Portuguese. Fantastic. Studying English first. I would imagine that this is what a lot of Asian students would do, not only, but mostly. And studying the language is really just getting the knowledge, right? Knowing how the grammar works and why it works and what is present perfect and how do I use, well, not how do I use, but what are the rules for the past perfect or the future perfect continuous that you probably will never use. How do I use ergative verbs? Probably something nobody has ever asked. But you want to know how the language works, but you're just getting knowledge. And knowledge for the sake of knowledge, it doesn't probably give you exactly the results that you want, because many students say that they want to speak more English. All of the questions I get usually entail or include something about having better spoken language, even if you are very, very good and fluent in English, as Andressa might be. So studying the language is just acquiring the knowledge. That's fun, and if that's your goal, fantastic. But learning the language, well, that's studying it and knowing it. You don't have to question yourself or ask anybody else the information. Now you know it. It's already there. If you're studying, you're still looking at the book and you're still thinking about the rules and you're not really sure. It's not good study, is it? But if you are learning the language, you've got it, you don't need to think about it anymore. So like learning to drive a car. You can study to drive a car, but that I don't want to be on the road when you are driving. You know everything about driving a car, all the pieces of the car and all the road rules. You know those, you've studied them. But have you actually driven a car? Probably not. So it takes driving the car to be able to drive the car. And there are some people, maybe you grew up on a farm or you were a delinquent meaning a naughty younger person, and you just got in the car and drove the car. And it was a little bit scary at first, but your dad taught you on a farm and you learnt to drive the car. You might not know what all of the pieces in the car are. You might not know all of the rules of driving a car. But if you get in a car and you start to learn how the things work without knowing the rules, you can drive a car. And it's the same for anything. You learn by doing. So going overseas to study English is probably not the best idea. Going overseas to learn English is better, but then using it, that's probably the best. That's what my kids do, but they do a bit of a mix, right? Because of course I understand that you can't use something if you don't have it. So yes, you could start by studying a little bit, but you really want to learn it, and by learning it you need to do a lot with it. So when you learn a new rule, just as you have done in the past 23 or 24 videos on this channel, the different ways to learn when, the different ways to use because, the different ways that we use although, how although, but, and however mean the same thing, but there is different punctuation or different situations that we might use them. If you have watched the video, I don't know why I'm doing that. If you have watched the video and studied the language, well, that was fun and I learned something new, or I saw something new. But have you learnt it? Probably not. Do you remember all of the different ways we can use because? Or do you remember all of the different ways we can use although or if? Everything that we have seen in the last few videos? I guess probably not. So was the video worthwhile? Was your time worthwhile? If you enjoyed it, I guess it was. But your goal is to be a better English user, not a better English knowledger. That's not a word, I just made it up. So if entertainment is what you want, fantastic. But I think you want better language. So go and watch them again, but actually get them in here and be able to use the language. So no one says I want to know everything about English and never speak or communicate. People don't usually do that. What people usually say is they want to be better at using the language. Well, they don't say that, they say speaking and communicating, and I want lots of native speaker friends or foreign friends. You're not going to get that by just studying or even by just learning. You're going to get it by using. Let's have a look. Where are we? Wow, that's awesome. Bom dia, Andressa. I'm so happy that there's lots of Portuguese and Japanese and a little bit of English. Let's have a look. Where is he? Alexander, have you had a problem? I have had many problems. Alex, where would you like to start? Maybe we can do that over a beer another time. Anyway, using the language. That's what we need to do. But each of you might have a different way of learning and a different ability to use the language. So maybe you are quite outgoing. You're very confident and you are happy to speak to lots of people and you don't mind making the mistakes. Well, it's probably going to be easier for you to use the language and improve on the language. Whereas if you are a little bit more shy, it's going to be very, very hard to use the language. And so you fall back on studying and learning, and you think you are doing very well because you know all of these things. You have a long list of vocabulary, hundreds of words, thousands of words that you have studied and learned and you can recall and remember, but you can't communicate to save your life. So you need to understand yourself before you understand the language and before you learn the language. Understanding yourself will then help you study and learn in a better way, and in turn you'll be able to use the language in a better way, and you will be a better English speaker. Fantastic. Let's have a look. Alex, my internet isn't working well. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe my internet isn't working very well. Kaz and Dresser, whoever, let me know if you can see me, because if I'm talking to myself, well, I know all of this, so I don't need to teach myself. Just let me know in the comments with a thumbs up or it's okay or something like that. If it's not, then I'll see you later. Anyway, so using the language. How do you know what sort of student you are, and can you change how you learn? So that means you need to think and be very honest and start to ask different questions, because if you ask better questions, you are going to get a better result, right? And it's not, as I said yesterday, you need a better goal. It's not, I want better English. Okay, well, what's your goal? How many people are you going to speak to every day? Or when do you want to do a presentation or make a YouTube video or have a conversation on Skype with me live on YouTube, which could be scary? I don't care what happens on the video, on the call. It might work, it might not. So what is your actual goal? And can you get the confidence to be able to communicate? Because if I put you on the street and said, I would like you to speak to 10 people, 20, 30, 40 people would pass you before you started to speak, because of the fear of judgment and just communicating, because you might fail. It doesn't matter. Remember, we need to fail. We need to fail forward, and then we will get better without even knowing about it. So, do you study? Do you learn? Or do you use the language? Study, learn, or use. And you can start with studying. You can get a little bit of a base, then you can learn more. But learning it's in here, and you don't need to look for it. I have learnt how to tie my shoelaces. I don't need to think about it. And now every day when I put my shoes on, I tie the laces. I don't think about it. My youngest daughter is still studying how to put her shoelaces on, but she doesn't look in a book. I tell her, she tries, she fails, everyone's happy. It's okay. Cool? Yes, cool. All right, let's have a look here. Nobody has told me that it is working, so I guess it's not working, but we will persevere, we will continue. And now we'll have a look at the different meanings of the word hot. Now, because that was my daughter's question, the different meanings of the word hot. And of course, you know that it is in regards to temperature, right? It's hot outside, whatever it might be, a hot day. It's also to do with temperature, but giving off heat, like the food that you've just cooked, or my my hot water, lemon and salt and apple cider vinegar. Oh, lovely. So temperature or giving off heat. But it can also mean popular at the moment. A hot artist or a hot new video game that I can't buy for my daughter's birthday because it's sold out. It's so hot at the moment. It's popular now. We could use hot to describe that. Of course, it could be used to describe sexy or handsome. I know that some of you might use the word hot to describe me. That's because I am surrounded by lights and I'm in a room that is hot, not because I'm sexy, I suppose. But it would be nice if you would call me that. And we have stolen goods or stolen items means hot. And I think that you probably would use hot for temperature and giving off heat. It's kind of the same thing, right? I don't think you would use it for these. Maybe you would use hot to describe sexy. Maybe. And but I don't think you would use it to describe stolen items. But it's definitely possible for native speakers to do that, right? If somebody asks, do you want to buy this iPhone? I might say, is it hot? And they would obviously reply no, because they didn't steal it. But maybe they did. I don't know. So those are the different meanings of the word hot. Now, you have just studied those a little bit. You are studying the word hot. Does that mean that then you can use it and you have improved your language? I don't think so. You've improved your knowledge of the language. So well done. But you need to then use it until it's in here. But there is a problem. There is a problem with your language learning, and until you can fix this problem, of course there are lots of problems we need to fix, but until you can fix this problem, you won't become super fluent and be the language user that you want. And that would be that I'll put might, because it's not true for everybody. You might lack patience. You want to be better yesterday, or you want to be better tomorrow or the end of the week at the latest. And if you can't recall these words, then it's not good enough. Or you studied in Australia for 6 months and you can't order dinner, or you can't understand somebody on the telephone. Well, did you actually study for 6 months? Even if you went to school, a language school, for 5 hours a day, did you actually study for 25 hours a week, Monday to Friday? That's easy maths for me. That's as far as I could go. Did you do your homework? Maybe. But along with lack of patience, was probably the time at school was not ideal, because at school, when you studied English, you were studying English so that you could do a test on Monday. At least that's what it was like at the school where I taught, or the schools. You had a test on Monday, and that was all the week before was about. Let's learn this vocabulary because it will be on the test. Let's learn this grammar because it will be on the test. And you fill in sentences and you look at things, grammar, vocabulary, and you practice just enough so you can pass the test, so your teacher can put a tick in a box and then move on. And the following week you ask about present perfect and your teacher says, we did that last week. Well, I need to do it again. So I don't like how you learn or study at schools, because I don't think you use it enough. In my small school in Southport on the Gold Coast, or even Zoom classes, small groups, there is no test. It's just using the language and finding new ways to use the language and enhance or improve what you want to say. Just like this example, wherever we are, I'm getting used to that, getting better. Up there, you might lack patience, and I could change that. You might have a lack of. Now we've got a verb, lack. It's a verb, but now we've got a noun, and this is a verb. This way can improve your language. If you have a verb, you want to change it to a noun and use a different verb, that's one way that you can expand your language. In tomorrow's video, I'm going to go over that in a little bit more detail. You can study, you can practice, you can use, and then you are an English user. So on the lack of patience, how long do you expect to take to be what you want to be? What is your goal? Your 100-day goal, your 10-year goal, your 30-year goal. You should have this goal, and if it is to be fluent as a native speaker, you need to maybe get rid of your goal and make it part of your life. Just like brushing your teeth, having a bath, eating food, you are going to do that for the rest of your life. So becoming a fluent English speaker, it's like having a bath. You don't have a bath once and say, right, I'm done. You do it consistently. Every day, maybe every other day. Sure, you might go backpacking in South America and not have a bath for a week or two, but you will be desperate for one in that week or two. So you do it all the time. Very consistent practice of having a bath, cleaning yourself. That's what you should do with your study and usage of language. Not sometimes, not once a week, all the time. If your goal is to be very, very fluent. If your goal is to I'm just interested in the language, that's totally fine. Because remember, there are only results. But if you say to me, Paul, I've been studying for 10 years and I can't speak to native speakers. Well, I think you should audit or track your time. You should audit or track your time, because if you don't record it, it's not going to help you. What doesn't get recorded doesn't improve, I think. So you need some sort of structure to know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and do it every day regardless. Today, I didn't want to make a video. I wanted to go and help my kids with their schoolwork. And I thought, I'm not really feeling it, but I'm doing it. And now I'm enjoying it. You will pass the time anyway. The time will pass. The week, the months, the years, it will pass. And in 5, 10, 15 years, you might think still, oh, I wish I was fluent in English. And you might regret what you did. But you will not regret doing it. At the time, if you're doing it, it's a little bit annoying, maybe, because it's hard. But I think this last thing that we'll talk about, do you want short-term pleasure and long-term pain? Let's write that. Do you want this short-term pleasure? Whoops. Short-term pleasure and long-term pain versus short-term pain and long-term pleasure. Which one do you want? What do you want? Short-term pain and long-term pleasure, or short-term pleasure and long-term pain? I don't know. I think most people would go for this short-term pleasure. That's why people smoke. You're going to get sick. But that's short-term pleasure. Drinking another beer, pleasure. Watching Netflix, pleasure. Watching this YouTube video, maybe, hopefully, pleasurable. Why am I smoking? It's not smoking. Do you want the short-term pain or do you want the short-term pleasure? I think you would be much better off choosing this, because you will get this. If you choose this, you will get that. Should I watch Netflix or should I go and speak to somebody? Which is better in the long term for my language? Watching Netflix is great. It's fun. It's enjoyable. Maybe you learn some vocabulary. You think you are practicing your listening. Maybe. But it's not the most productive thing. If you go and actively try to speak to somebody, it's very, very possible. It's uncomfortable at first, but it's super, super useful in the long run, in the long term. So which do you want? Who knows? Anyway, that's the video for today. Thank you so much for watching. I would love you to like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Sharing it with your friends would be the best thing. Say, watch this guy, because I want to help more people, as many people as possible. And if you would like to send me questions to Instagram or whatever it might be, I promise I will get to them. Kaz, I will answer your questions. Tomorrow we'll have a look at your errors, or in another video that I make, we'll correct your mistakes. Thank you again so much for consistently watching, but now go and consistently use the language, and you will be much happier, and so will I. Anyway, on that note, have a fantastic day or night, wherever you may be, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.